Pat Nevin goes further, though. And we often talk about the north-south divide. Pat's saying, you want atmosphere, head north. He says, last week I was at Sunderland, Newcastle, then Middlesbrough, Chelsea, then Newcastle, Manchester City. For those unaware of the geography, these games were all in cities in the northeast of England at big clubs who are passionately supported, steeped in football, but who rarely win major trophies. He's right. They might not win trophies, but by God, you know all about it when you go to the games. The atmosphere is fantastic.
Right.
In some cases, compared to down here.
Okay, so I think the atmosphere at Arsenal was fantastic.
Is it?
So what it is, because we've been there and watched it. It was a library.
You saw Arsenal Man City. It was a big one that
But there's
night.
a universal feeling that the atmosphere at the Emirates is significant. I mean, we can all make these comparisons and draw parallels, and there's lots of things that are positive about northern clubs and lots of things that are positive about southern clubs. I've always maintained the view that because of the nature of this side of the country, specifically London football clubs, let's stick 10 clubs in Manchester and see how committed they are. We've got 10 football clubs in the capital. It's a very different style of life down here. There's a very different demand, and football clubs don't tend, in this part of the country, right or wrong, to be the absolute cornerstone of the community. So we can draw these parallels. And I mean, Newcastle fans prior to the Saudis did nothing but bitch and whine and moan about the state of their football club and how much they hated it, i.e. the ownership, right? So
yeah,
when
it wasn't the club they hated or the place.
And
it was the ownership.
But so what? It all goes with the territory. So what we can do is we can draw these clever little analogies to make a point.
It is a clever analogy. I mean, Nevin goes on, if there were awards for the quality of the atmosphere, however, each would be Champions League contenders.
Maybe, but the bottom line is that, you know, you look at things and there are cultural differences in terms of the London crowds against the northern crowds. And yeah, I agree. I've always said that, you know, that if I'd have owned a football club in London, in Sheffield, if I'd have owned Sheffield Wednesday, I'd have got a lot more support from local councils to be able to do certain things like develop the stadium or the training ground. You'd have had a lot more engagement from the fans because they're prepared to be behind the side, good, bad and indifferent. We'll see. The Newcastle fans right now are fully invested because they're coming through a period where they've seen what they didn't want to see for 15 years or however long Mike was there. They're now seeing something very different. Let's see what they're like when they're acclimatised to it. Because I used to listen, and I don't care who doesn't like this, I used to listen to the nonsense from Freddie Shepherd and Douglas Hall about the Geordie Roar and how it was ever prevalent. No, it wasn't. They used to be there when they scored. I sat at games when we played them in FA Cups and league games, and it was silent until they scored like any other team. We can create these myths about what is wonderful in one part of the country and what's not wonderful in another.
Down here, it's often said there's tourists at grounds down here. Loads of tourists.
Because it's the bleeding capital of England. What do you expect it to be? You've got football stadiums down here. I mean, look at the atmosphere at Tottenham. Got a problem with that? Have we got a problem with that, Pat? How about bringing that into the analysis? No, that doesn't suit the argument you're making.
It's a great atmosphere.
So why isn't that an example then? Why are we hawking our mutton off to different parts of the country to compare and contrast?
You don't like the north-south divide, do you? You don't like it when if the south is deemed to be coming off second best.
I have a son, tragically for me, that was born in the north, so I have to embrace.
Why is it tragic for you that?
Because I'm a southerner, and I prefer
you don't
this.
Like the north?
No, I do. I like the north. I just don't particularly want to live in it. I'm a southerner. I value this part of the country. I don't devalue other parts of it, but I'm quite prepared in the same way that I would rather sit here and say English football is the best and the English fans are the best rather than say it's the English disease for football. I believe in supporting the things that you believe in, not by degrading other things. I don't degrade other things. What Pat's doing is going, all the atmosphere in the north is good and all the atmosphere in the south is crap. Well, that's great, Pat. I didn't see you paying for many northern clubs. You played in London.
He played for Tranmere Rovers.
Well, not for long.
I think
no one talks about Tranmere Rovers atmosphere, do they?
Andrew, in Newcastle, tell me, are we on something here? When you go north, you get atmosphere and you get passion. Is Pat Nevin right? You come down here in some places like Stamford Bridge, where he used to play, is like a mausoleum. What do you think, Andrew?
Morning, lads.
Morning.
I was on a few weeks ago. Me and Mr. Jordan had a little bit of a ding dong. You might have finished up the call with a Michael Owen comment, which went down well, I think. So it's just in regards of when he's going on about this Geordie Roar and about the northern clubs saying that it's a myth. It's not a myth. It's the fact is that football fans are more passionate. Yes, it is the cornerstone of the local community. But is that not the same in southern clubs as well? And just in regards of when his defence was Arsenal or Tottenham, Did he watch the Arsenal game on the weekend? Did he?
Was it lacking atmosphere somewhat, Andrew, in your view?
Well, I mean, if my team won 5-0 in a Premier League fixture, if you look at the lower tiers in that stand, they were empty before the full-time whistle. Now he'll say, "Oh, it's the rush to get the tube." But best transfer system in the country, apparently, down south, which we haven't got up north. I'll tell you, we wait an awful lot for trains, and we don't run out before the final whistle. Especially if you're 5-0 up, you stay and you clap your team off. Why pay all that money with the ridiculous prices of tickets down south, and you leave 5-10 minutes early to catch the tube?
What do you think, Andrew? Just before you go, what do you think makes the atmosphere and the passion at a northern club like Newcastle superior to the ones in London?
We love football, Jim. Top and bottom of it. Football is everything up here to us. To them, it's a hobby. To us, it's a lifestyle. Simple as that. And he'll come back with, "Oh, I've been there for 1 or 2 games," and he'll sit and slag the north off when he's sitting in his house in London and he flies off to Spain. But if he actually stayed up here and took in a little bit of the culture.
I did. I had 250 shops around the country, and some of them in Newcastle. Spent a lot of time up there, and you guys make a lot of noise, and that's wonderful. You don't win anything, no, do you?
Well, no.
You've always made lots of noise up in the north, in your part of the world, but you don't win anything. It's lots of noise.
When's the last time Crystal Palace won anything?
We're not talking about Crystal Palace. We're talking about football clubs in the south and drawing a parallel between the atmospheres. We've already conceded a point. If you actually lived in London and understood the dynamics of London, when I make the observation about the culture of London, then you would understand my point. That if you've got 10 or 15, I haven't finished. You've got 10 or 15 different football clubs in and around London. They won't necessarily form part of the same value of the community that your club does. No one's devaluing your clubs. We're just giving a different point of view. I understand implicitly and explicitly how valuable Newcastle United Football Club is to its community and how important it is. I spent inordinate amounts of time listening to John Hall and Freddie Shepherd and Douglas Hall telling me about this and understanding it. So I get it. I just don't happen to concur that all the best supporters are in the north. Half of Manchester United's fan base comes from bloody Surrey.
Andrew, listen, stay passionate. Listen, thank you.
The worst fans in the country. We've got the worst home atmosphere in the country. There's only that way, and that's good, and that's because we've got local lads that go and watch them away. At home, you've got all them coming up from your way on the train.
True.
We played them in the cup final.
Agreed.
Last season. I was there for the full weekend. Do you know how many Man United strips I've seen on a Friday and a Saturday night? Not one. I saw my first one an hour before kick-off because we're all coming from home, jumping on the tube.
Very true. I agree. We will agree on that.
Andrew, what a great call.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.